Okay, so thanks for joining the uh, the session on gifts and wills today. So I'll go through, and then at the end, if there's any questions, it might just be me and you at the end, Colin, but that's fine. But we'll I can take any questions at the end. Um,
Okay.
so really, how we're going to encourage gifts and wills amongst our parishioners, really, and the people that come to our churches. I think it's important to note that that generosity. We sometimes think of generosity as in the giving we do, like PGS or contactless or our regular giving, but actually generosity comes under part of the national church generosity, building a church of generosity. So the gifts and wills giving side of things is exactly the same, really. It should be treated as exactly the same part of our generosity. And I love this prayer, which talks about those that have walked before us in the way of Christ and shared their love and faith with us and been great benefactors to our church. And then a prayer for us that we might be faithful stewards as well with what's been entrusted to us by God. As we obviously want to encourage all people to know His love. So I mean, that's just a really lovely prayer, just that really helps us to think a bit about gifts and wills. So, but the point is really, why encourage gifts and wills? I mean, I think that it is, as we've said, it's part of Christian giving, and it should be seen as part of our normal giving. It's an incredible financial opportunity for future sustainability, and we'll see that a bit more as we go through. And actually, it's really life affirming. I think it's life affirming for the people that are leaving gifts, but also it's life affirming for the people maybe that are sat, in the church hearing the fact that, these people have left a gift to the church. And I think that just with all things giving, really, we need to be quite gentle in how we approach. And sometimes I think gifts in wills, especially, can be seen as being, no one really wants to talk about it. But I think if a gentle but really practical approach is made to it, then it can be really helpful. We've said an amazing source of income. I mean, overall, the voluntary sector it's worth over £3 billion a year, going up to possibly 10 billion by 2050. And to the Church of England, it's worth over £60 million a year. And when we talk about things like millions, billions, and trillions, we sort of get lost in it, don't we? But I mean, this is just immeasurable amount of money that will pass between generations within the next few years. So you know, there's a lot of money when we start talking about gifts and wills and about legacies. So, how do we increase these gifts and wills? And I think the first thing we need to do really is to start talking about it, is to start the conversation and to start asking. And I know that, some vicars, incumbents, find this a difficult thing to talk about. I've been invited by a couple of vicars to preach on legacy giving, but also to just start the conversation in their church, really. So, and I think that's where we've just got to start. And sometimes you just need to start, and I think that's what we need to do when it comes to gifts and wills, is to start talking about it, and then it becomes a much more normal thing for us to do. I don't know if you know how many Anglicans have ever been asked to leave a legacy by their church. It's actually 15%. To the Anglican Giving Survey from 2020. 15% of Anglicans have been asked to support their church by leaving a gift in their will, which doesn't seem very many people being asked. And the point is, Anglicans are hugely generous people and are 3 times more likely to leave a gift to charity than they are to their church. So these people, these Anglicans, are ready to leave money to things that they feel passionately about. And I think sometimes it's because they don't know that they can leave to their church, or that they assume that the church has got lots of money when they don't. So this is why we need to start talking about it, to make sure people have accurate information. This is just a graph that shows some of the regular income and then the legacy income from some big charities. And this is millions, obviously, up the side here. And you can see that, some of these charities, the percentage of legacy income is huge. I mean, look at the lifeboats there. it's just well over 50% of their income is from legacy, people leaving gifts. The same with the RSPCA and the National Trust. Look, a massive amount of money is left that they get through legacies. If we look at it, we look at another graph in a minute in the context of the Church of England. But we think when we start thinking about, where this money is coming from, we need to start thinking about who we're going to ask to leave a gift in the will, because it is primarily probably church members, people that worship in the congregation, maybe your regular financial givers that actually haven't thought about leaving a legacy, but are these great givers to our churches. So they're people that we need to consider. What about volunteers and groups that meet in the church? Do we invite these people to be part of the church in the future through a legacy? And also maybe even those people that aren't maybe church members or aren't worshipping in the churches, but they are hugely invested in the church. Maybe they used to live in the village, or their grandparents are buried in the churchyard. People that just come and use the church for activities, visitors and tourists. What if someone walks into your church potentially and falls in love with it? Why not give them the option to leave a gift in their will to it? And also, we have a huge number of people who maybe don't choose to worship in our churches, but are just massive heritage supporters and just want to see the heritage, the building, and all the incredible stuff, inside and also, on the outside of the church, live on into the future. So actually, really anyone can be asked to leave a gift in their will. Because if we look at, this is again with the Church of England added in, so it's slightly distorted the graph, but it is the same as the previous one. So if we look at the voluntary income the Church of England receives, it's hugely, so much more than any of the other charities. Over £800 million a year is given to the Church of England through regular voluntary giving. But the legacy income is actually 7%. Nationally, the legacy income is 7%. And it's a huge distortion between our regular giving and our legacy, the income that we receive from people. And we're incredibly grateful, aren't we, to those people that contribute to that £800 million. But actually, how many of those people would want to leave a legacy, a gift in their will, if they knew that they could? And I think that's where we need to start the conversation, really. Because we need to start the conversation and start telling stories and talking about need and impact of gifts and wills. Because people often won't give if they don't know the need is there or that they can. And also, people like to know where their money is going and what it's going to be used for. And I think telling stories about gifts and wills is hugely beneficial. These are just some quotes from us locally, from the diocese, but also nationally as well. Little things like, it meant we could run a messy church. It meant that we've stocked the food bank. We could start the building project. We could employ the children's worker. I mean, it's incredible what a legacy can do. And I think, again, that's something that we're not good at. We need to start telling stories about what has happened when people have left a legacy. The other thing is as well, of course, is that, to start the building project, yes, maybe someone's left hundreds of thousands of pounds, which is fantastic. But what about the person that, wants to leave £50, £100, I don't know, to buy a new set of hymn books or whatever? I just think sometimes people think they've got to leave lots of money for it to be worthwhile. And I think, again, we're undermining the impact of a legacy that someone could give, because it just could have a huge impact on the church at that moment, even if it isn't a huge amount of money. So I think telling stories is really important. We need to put these stories in our parish newsletters, on our websites, on our Church Near You page. We need to start thinking about preaching and teaching about legacies, celebrating legacies. Sometimes having an annual legacy event is a really lovely thing to do, to have a legacy Sunday. And again, some churches choose to do that. Are we shouting about it on social media in a nice way? That, look, Mrs. Smith left us X amount of money and we're so grateful for it. I just think we need to start being a bit more proactive about how we celebrate these legacies. And things like, for example, if someone's had their child baptized in the church, you know, wouldn't it be lovely for them to remember that occasion every year by giving a donation every year, but maybe even just deciding at that moment they want to leave, something in their will to the church because they've been so blessed by it, because their children have been baptized there, because they were married there, or as we've said before, because their grandparents were buried in the in the graveyard. So I think we just need to start talking about it. And then when people leave us legacies, the family need to be thanked. I think that's really important as well. I mean, if we know beforehand, we can thank the person in advance. But actually, it's really lovely for a family to receive a thank you letter, because, your granddad left us this money. We just want to let you know that we have been able to. And I think that's just a really lovely way of celebrating the life of the person that left the gift in their will. Another way to encourage legacy giving and gifts in wills is to offer a free will. And the Church of England is joined with Fairwill, which is an online will writing service, and it's free. I mean, it's a proper will. It's all checked by the solicitors. I mean, I would say as well, it's a fairly simple will. So if you've got a complicated estate, I wouldn't suggest Fairwill particularly. But if you've got a normal estate, you're leaving a house or money to people, excuse me, then it's perfectly fine. And what Fairwill does through the process, it's a normal will writing service, but it asks twice in the process, would you like to leave to your parish church? And then if you say yes, you can just pick the parish church off the list. And if you can say no at that point, and then later on it says, we ask you again, are you sure you don't want to leave to your parish church? You can say no again, it's absolutely fine. Or you can say yes. And I think this is it. It just asks the question where maybe people haven't even thought about it and actually think, oh, yes, I would like to. And it asks about, do you want to leave a set amount or do you want to leave, a residual amount? So it's a really good way of introducing it to people. The other worrying thing is that 30% of Anglicans don't have a will. And I think generally it's an act of love anyway to ask someone if they've got a will. Why would we not want, that person to decide what happens to their stuff? Make that decision now and not let someone else decide it for them. So I think, again, it's a really, really nice thing to do is to start talking about wills and what people are going to do. And once they've looked after their family and those they love, why not leave some money to the church? And actually, from Fairwill, about a quarter of people who are using the Fairwill service are leaving a gift in their will, a legacy to their church. So that's brilliant. So it's a tailored journey really for churches, Fairwill. I've got some leaflets that I can send out as well, which has got a QR code. Just scan the QR code and it takes you through to our sort of diocese side of the Fairwill section, and it's a really easy way to do. And I think making it easy is really important. So this is the poster. So you just scan the poster; it takes you straight through the process. And I love this quote by Reverend Canon Sharon Coburn, who's Director of Mission and Ministry for the diocese. And she was going to Kajira with the bishop last year, and she thought she better update her will before she went. I don't know if that's any reflection on what happens when you're on a mission with the bishop, but she said she did it, and she just wanted to say, I want you to tell people, Emma, that absolutely how easy it was for me to do, and I was so glad. I felt very reassured by it, and that she would recommend Fairwill. So I mean, I think that's the other thing, is the more people we have using it, the more recommendations we'll get for it. I've written some new resources. We're doing a big legacy launch this year, actually, in the deaneries. So there's a nice leaflet which just gently takes people through the process. There is the QR code to scan for Fairwill. I also wrote a legacy pledge form. Again, I just think it's just a complete unknown, really, when it comes to gifts in wills. Who's going to, we don't know unless someone actually tells you, I am going to leave a gift in my will to the church. Actually, we needed maybe to give people the option to, if they wanted to actually say that they were going to do that in advance. It can be anonymous, or people can just actually, I do want you to know I'm going to leave some money to the church in my will. So it's just another option, really. We've got loads of resources on the website. Again, when I send the slides out, all these links will be live. So top tips, how the PCC can sort of come up with not a policy so much as a statement of words, just a statement saying, we just want to encourage people to consider leaving a gift in their will. So there's lots of resources, information out there. And again, these links are all live. We've even got things like sample wording if people don't know what wording, if they want to go to a solicitor, for example, and not do fair will, and they maybe want how do I even word it that I want to leave to my church? There's example of wording which can help people, when they're with their solicitors, and just some really nice information about how we start planning and thinking about how we're going to move forward with gifts in wills, really. There's loads of literature nationally as well. The National Church has a sort of legacy department as part of the building the generosity, building a church of generosity. So there are downloads there. Those leaflets can be sort of made bespoke for your church. So there's lots of information there to help support with the gifts in wills. That's the Church Legacy, the National Church website. And again, loads of really good information. And on our diocesan website and on Insights, we've got some really good information as well, which can help people, to make the right decisions. It's interesting, just from our point of view, from the diocesan figures for the last couple of years. I haven't got 24's figures yet, but in 2022 we had 81 legacies left to the diocese, which amounted to £1.9 million. In 2023, we had 85 legacies left, which amounted to £1.3 million. And those figures, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant, that amount of money. But it makes me think, there are 453 churches in the diocese. And I know not all of them have hundreds of people going to them. But 85 legacies doesn't seem a huge amount of people leaving to our churches in the diocese. And I wonder if it's because they don't know they can, that their parish church is a charity and they can leave to their parish church, or we're just not good at talking about it. And I think we need to get better at talking about it, and not so that people don't leave money to charities but leave to their church, but actually that people make a considered decision about, I want to leave money to the RNLI or to the National Trust, but I also want to leave money to my parish church because, I've been blessed by it. Or they feel like it's the right thing. There was a church in Bury St Edmunds who were able to start their building project because a lady who lived in the parish left them £300,000. She never set foot in the church. I mean, she just wanted to leave money to the church. And I think, we need to get better at talking about it because, although that money it's a huge amount of money, but really 85 legacies, it doesn't seem very many legacies, considering the number of churches we have and the number of people we have attending those churches, although their regular giving is huge. So again, it's making a balance of thanking people for their giving, but actually helping them to make, considered decisions about whether they want to leave gifts in wills. So the next steps really for any church that's wanting to sort of move forward on this, or actually just to start talking about it, is really to have a parish contact. I think that's really important because people need to know who to talk to. And although, obviously vicars would be super at that, their vicars are quite busy. So I think maybe it should be someone else that is that parish contact. And I would happily work with that parish contact on resources and information. Decide on a plan, just think, are we going to just gently introduce it, have some leaflets at the back of the church, or maybe ask the vicar to preach on it a couple of times a year, or just a gentle, or are we going to go all in and just decide, no, we're going to have a Legacy Sunday, we're going to have banners and bells and whistles, and we're just going to really ask. I mean, again, it will depend on your congregation and what you feel is the right thing to do. But there's loads of resources available and we can help with this. So please do say, if you're making your plan, if you decide on a day, then actually you want to make sure that everything is, available, all the resources are available. On the Church Near You page, I mean, I'm a big advocate of a Church Near You anyway. The page has over 70 million hits a year, a Church Near You page. So, you know, for sure, some of them are going to be your church. So we're encouraging churches to have a sort of a legacy page on your Church Near You page so that people can, you know, find out information about how to leave a gift in their will to the church from the Church Near You page. Again, mustn't underestimate the impact of people abroad. There was, I recently heard a story of a church who just suddenly got £200 arrive in their bank, and then it was followed up with a sort of an email from someone who lived in Canada, was doing their family tree, and found that their grandma was buried in that churchyard, and just said, "We want to thank you for looking after, you know, our grandma." And I think again, you know, we mustn't underestimate that. You know, this is people all over the world use the church near you. And what if, you know, they've heard stories about your church, or they just love your stained glass window and they want to leave a gift in their will? We need to make sure that people know how to do this, really. And I think the key is we just got to start talking about it. You know, gently talking about it, gently introducing it to people, as if it's just a normal thing to talk about. Because you know, this is just part of Christian discipleship, part of our giving. And how lovely to be able to leave a legacy, you know, to your church after you're gone. So that's it for the slides. I've got, you know, the slides will come out to you, and they'll have all the information. All the links are live, so you'll be able to click on all the links and, you know, and go and you know, see what information is there, really. But Colin, did you have any questions or anything? I see it's only the two of us left, so Lucy's had to go.
Really? Oh, well, I can monopolize you for ages.
Absolutely, of
No,
course you can. Yes, you can.
no, that's very kind. Thank you very much. It's all very interesting.
Good.
To a degree, it's a matter of getting going. Is I mean, people as your stats, people are very bad at getting around to writing a will in the first place. But when they do set up a will, their first thing would be no doubt to distribute it to the family. And
Of
yeah,
course.
it's actually having something in front of them or tripping them to make them think that maybe giving to the church is a good idea as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I had an aunt who gave lots of money to the or proposed to give lots of money to the donkey sanctuary in Sidmouth. But her husband had been buried in the church. So actually, she had, on her own volition, decided to give some money to her local church as well. So it is possible. But
Absolutely.
I think where you're there is steps to make it easy. So I'm intrigued by a church near you. So a sort of a one, two, three sort of these. This is what you need to do. And when helping my aunt to write her will, actually to have a form of words
Mm,
from the people that she wanted to give the money to made it much easier because then you knew that the solicitors or whoever or the executors whatever could follow what she wanted to do. So
absolutely.
um, I think that was one thing. The other thing is broadcasting that the church is a charitable status and it's so therefore their money won't go to the chancellor because I think the prime aim in all these wills seems to be to avoid giving money to the chancellor.
Absolutely.
So I
Yes.
so I think that's a big push.
Mm,
So somewhere in the the main bullets of so do give to your church to keep it going, and B this money will be tax exempt in your inheritance tax.
absolutely.
I think
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's the key message that unless
Yeah.
it's actually
I
written
think
down,
it's information. It's
people
definitely,
will
as say, it's
think it
starting the
might
conversation
be
and then giving
yeah
people the right information. Yeah. Mm,
people might not they might think it might be but they wouldn't be sure, so
mm.
actually seeing it written down uh that is so I mean I'd be interested in coming back to you in due course to get a bespoke set of
Absolutely.
instructions as it were for the a church near you
Yeah.
website.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
Happy to
then
do that, Colin. No problem at all.
and if the once the information is laid out then that can be printed off and left in the church
Yeah.
or whatever. But as we've all got aging populations, then your rate of giving should be going up at a steeper curve than 81 to 85, I think.
Yes, I know exactly. Yes, yeah, yeah. I'm saying, and it's just giving people the opportunity. I mean, I think that's the other thing is because people can say no, thank you, and that's absolutely fine, isn't it? But
Yeah.
sometimes people just need the opportunity, and I think we're doing them a disservice by not allowing them if they don't know, not even allowing them to have the opportunity to make a considered decision about whether they want to or not. So great. Well, come back to me, Colin. That's absolutely fine.
All right then. Well, thanks, Emma, and
No
thanks to
problem
your
at all.
team for doing these educational things.
No
It
problem. No
just sort of
problem.
helps us move one step closer to action.
Hope so. Yeah, I hope so. That's what it's all about. Anything I can do, let me know.